Welcome to a beautiful day here. I'm Aaron Jack. We're going to be live with Virginia Damtsa and Colin McMaster. Thank you to Doing Good HQ, where you, the artist, are also the philanthropist. I appreciate you all joining here today, whenever today is, and just being here with us, because that's the best thing. I think we're going to go into a really interesting scenario today where we're going to be in the middle of a gallery. And this is a unique opportunity to see from the art dealer, to see from the perspective of the artist. And I think we're going to have a good time. So thank you so much for joining. We're just going to be on here in another minute or so with all of this technology and things, and bringing back and forth the analog to digital. So we're just going to go live here with little and go across a little bit across the world. Hello. Welcome. Yes, welcome. So where are we?
Well, welcome to a live show. Actually, this is the first day. Actually, we're expecting. We have already guests drinking wine, enjoying themselves. This is Colin McMaster, the artist.
How are you doing? Nice to meet you.
Here, if people cannot recognize his name, and this is his show opening night with a few guests. I mean, it's 5 to 9, and we had already our first guest.
Yeah. Good.
Wow.
On a sunny London.
Mm-hmm.
On a sunny London
where
day.
are you?
Where are we? We're West London, Notting Hill.
Perfect.
Really developed room in the Walmer Castle.
Wow.
Yeah, so we
Do you
have
want to show us
the room is composed, actually the whole building is composed of different, so downstairs they have a members bar, restaurant, and then upstairs is kind of the culture room, which is, art. And then we have here like 6 works by Colin. We're happy to take you around if that helps.
Yeah, that would be awesome. I'd love to see around.
Yeah. So, maybe Colin wants to say two words.
Yeah.
Oh, come on,
yeah.
Colin.
Do you want to say something?
Say 2 words
about
it.
Well, it's great to air some work finally. These works were made in lockdown, so it's great to get things out and on show and on walls again, and get people in, welcoming, having a drink, looking at some art. Stuff that's conceived, and I've been moving around the studio for a long time. It's good to get different light on it and get the reason why we make things, to get people looking at it and having a chat about it, and either being repulsed by it or annoyed by it, or amused by it, or wanting to know more. So it's good.
Here we have the leading piece. Actually, you see 2 ladies drinking wine. Hello. And so actually it took him, how long did it take today?
I usually work on a few at one time, but on and off it was probably about nearly a year, I'd say. We're not constantly, but going back to it and honing it and chucking a pillow out and losing a figure and then adding some other things. So it became a labour of love. But I think it was the one that had most
Composition.
Most things that could go wrong and probably have gone wrong, and some works you can't really look at again because you can't live with, because you get so irritated by the things that you should tweak or revisit. But I think it was abandoned in a nice place. If you're to misuse the Picasso code or whatever, it was. It's there. It's a bit of a monster.
I mean, what is difficult to see online is actually the 3-dimensionality of these works. So they're all kind of handcrafted. So they're all on wood that he carved. And so that you cannot see the 3-dimensionality if you look at this online. You can only see it live. So maybe later we can approach the works, and now I can show you this.
Yeah, that would be great. I'd love to see what you're talking about. Maybe you can just bring us up close and...
Certainly.
Yeah, you
if
can
you don't mind.
Move it around. Feel free.
So the work, if you can see, it's all kind of hand-carved with me with a router, just kind of attacking various bits of most of these wood, that have a little happy accent. If it's like fine bits of wood that I'd skip dive during lockdown, And then I got tired of just relying on paint solely for just light work, to get light and shadow, and I kind of wanted this. I thought just literally getting bits of wood to add a bit of depth to it, but it's a fine line of knowing how far you come off the wall, because you kind of do want people to live with it. So I just quite like the kind of little interplays you get with various figures and shadows, and moving up you'll see it's kind of various pieces kind of just jutting out at different angles. I just got tired of living with.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about.
With the same, 4 parameters that you're being boxed in.
Maybe if we look here.
Yeah, sorry, if you go on the side.
So we're really getting out of the box here, outside.
Yes.
Of the
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. As a kid, I'd always get annoyed at kind of things being framed. I wanted to kind of step into that. You step into a Van Gogh painting or kind of another bit of work that you kind of just love the environment. And I got frustrated that it was always hemmed in to a point. So I during lockdown I felt the urge to kind of break out. That might have been that, just the kind of called psychology, just kind of wanting to break out a bit more. That I decided just to kind of why should I be inhibited by the kind of four sides of it, and just
can you see this also while he's talking?
Yeah. You can bring something closer. Feel free.
So we have this, which we show you, and then maybe this. Can you see this one?
Yeah.
And this one I just used the smoke.
You can flip around the camera as well. You can press that little flip around thing, and then it switches.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. There you go.
Oh no, this you look at me.
Okay. But yeah, you can.
Yeah.
Works easiest. Mm-hmm.
So in this one, I was more. I decided just to use the smoke trails I've always tried to paint, which is a nightmare. It's kind of like impossibility. But I wanted, if I was boxing something in, I thought it might be interesting to use this kind of smoky, because the characters I was using are always kind of this kind of smoke-filled, kind of slightly narcissistic, but it's kind of a dark underbelly, which is what I've usually been. I grew up with hardly any art in the house. But there was just this large stack of my dad's kind of pulp fiction books that had these kind of odd covers that would have someone who just looked intent on doing something. It was kind of an area of menace.
No, I was saying to Colin to go and speak. Why don't you sit here and speak? I can, yeah. Okay, then we have another piece here.
It's more kind of bedroom. It all seems bed-related, these ones. I think maybe I was spending a lot of time. I think it just lends itself naturally just to a narrative. I thought of what's happened, what's going on, what's his character, what's going off the side of it. You're left as a kind of voyeur, kind of half kind of in accusation, but half kind of wanting to know more. So there's kind of always a kind of natural intrigue with what's going on at the other side of what you're actually seeing.
This one is very theater-like. You feel like you want to kind of close the curtain.
Interesting. Yeah. How do you are you opening or closing the curtain? How do you feel about this? The theatrical aspect of some of these.
He's talking about the theatrical aspect of it.
Yeah. I suppose it is quite stage poppy, but I just like the element of kind of, there's lots of stuff that doesn't work really, so you do have to be brutal sometimes. I think I painted another figure there, and you just end up having to kind of go, well, that doesn't work, and just slice down and just deal with the amount of lost time. But so you do have to edit yourself, and there's stuff does line and cutting room floor a lot of part of the crap plan. But I enjoy that kind of heightened sense of melodrama, really, if that's kind of theatrical, if that's what you mean, Aaron. It's that kind of Hitchcockian kind of suspenseful kind of moments where you're just trying to reach for a kind of bit of narrative that you're not sure what's happening, but you want to know more. So you're left with kind of that element of intrigue and kind of suspense, really.
So it's difficult to move around. Come back on it. It's difficult to, we're back in the room, as we say, we're back in the room. It's difficult to move around with the camera and trying to gather everything in one go. I hope we didn't kind of dazzle you too much. Yeah. Do you have any other
Now
questions?
I'm curious. Yeah, I do. I have plenty of questions.
Oh, no.
Now I'm very, yeah. Oh no. No, I'm you couldn't leave without some questions. No, I'm very curious. Where does this start in terms of observation, and what is your process for observation and like your, in that interaction, that might include your sketchbook, or what is that process behind it? And
starting point, or it's usually mapped out, but in most things, there's always something that doesn't work organically. You have to kind of change tack. Something may start like, a grand piece and then just gets honed down a bit. But I'll usually start with a sketch of like, I will Frankenstein bits. It usually starts with a piece of hair that I'll kind of go, it's called quite stylized, and I've always enjoyed kind of painting hair. So I kind of will start with a haircut, weirdly, and then work from that. And then I'll take little elements and just kind of Frankenstein them in. It's usually that bits. I remember hearing Patrick Caulfield say he'd always paint quite old-fashioned things, and they went, "Well, there's plenty more '60s kind of design you should put in your paintings." And he went, "No, these are a peppermill, and things are timeless. They may seem mundane and boring." So I'd usually pick, that's why I go for like wood grain and kind of something that I feel is a bit timeless, that I'm not going to get sick of painting or looking at, and that everyone recognizes. It's not niche, but it's kind of not a cliche, but a kind of like a stereotype of something, and the figures are kind of like that in themselves. There'd usually be some sort of Hitchcockian kind of, I'm terrible at portraits, but it'd be a stereotype, like a blonde bombshell or something, or there'd be some sort of jilted lover or something. It's usually a kind of almost a Hollywood stereotype if there is a figure involved. So it's
kind of like, I always like look at them and think, okay, there's some kind of mystery, there's some kind of impending action. You don't know what's happening, so it's like maybe a little bit of film noir. Then also, it's almost like cooking a recipe, but you're actually mixing different kind of cuisine, different. Yes, and then I feel like there's also a little bit of pop art. So I think this is all kind of different combinations.
Yes, I've always liked the kind of aesthetic of pop art, but I like the undercurrent of more, of the seedier side, the underbelly of maybe film noir, and or just heightened melodrama of like romantic comics, things like that. You have a kind of little box in a comic. You've got to pack in a kind of lot of information in one little go. So things become shorthand for there's a kind of language almost of like, the telephone is not just a telephone, it's a kind of device for some sort of, undercurrent of doom almost. It's like a mess, or there's a message relayed. These kind of symbols that you kind of are timeless. I'd always kind of look for those in shorthand. I think it comes from that, just kind of, instead of looking at great art, I always had that, just, the influences I had growing up would be just either comics or just these kind of pulp covers or record sleeves, or just something where you got to pack in a lot of information very quickly and just very visually. So you look for it, and I've tried to carry on that just graphically. Just you've tried to kind of. So I'd usually start in a sketchbook, going back to the original answer, and just try and you kind of try to get these elements in, but there's always something that kind of there would be a focus to it or a center to it, but that organically when you make it, something always goes wrong.
But again, for those who are in London, I mean, the night is young. We open until 10 p.m. this evening, so join us. We have nice drinks.
Yes, the joy of being in a pub is
well,
drinks and
yeah. So we have a mixture. So it's still it's still you're welcome, Aaron. Why don't you pop in the plane? You don't
Well, thank you. I might. I'm now talking with you from Prague. Not so far away.
Very nice.
Well, it's not far,
Beautiful.
right?
Yeah.
Not so far. Not so far. I might, well, depending on security lines, might take me a little bit longer, but
I'll be open for you until midnight now. Yeah.
oh, well, perfect. I might make it then. So I'm very, I'm very curious about these symbols and what are some of these symbols and how have they come to represent elements for you, and how do they kind of interrelate together in the work?
I think I would probably say, not to blame Hollywood, but I think it's more these kind of symbols I would probably have grown up with just by, and it just comes naturally without thinking. You kind of see, if you have that painting there, for example, if you see a curtain like that, I would always like half drawn, I would always assumed that is something, there'd be feet underneath it, or someone would be hiding behind it, or there was an element of, mystery, or these kind of symbols. I think they come with baggage, all of them anyway, or like an old landline, or a kind of pillar with a kind of indentation in it, like where a head has been. They're loaded, and I'm not really sure what the genesis of it was, but you kind of adverts. You're hit with it from all sides, I suppose. If you're born in the 70s and or earlier, growing up with it, it's natural, I think.
So there's kind of like a cultural observation of these symbols. It sounds like you're saying like that it's
Yes.
not just based on like these universal elements of symbolism. It's also baked into the local culture of the time.
Yes, it's not, and it's not a critique on it. It's merely I'm using a language or a visual language that's already there, and it's usually things that I know, or I hope that other people will get or will understand, and and I enjoy painting, and that's the bottom line. You've always got to enjoy working with them and finding it works, or it's just on the surface then. But anyway, I hope that answers it. I don't know if it did. I think I was waffling there, but.
Well, I think that's really interesting, is this idea of the discussion of maybe deeper topics through the use of visual language and the symbolism that arises that you've seen.
Yeah, it's been used, calculatingly by, or misused by lots of, I don't know, advertising agencies or governments even, or in propaganda. But I'm more looking at the kind of lighter end of the spectrum, I hope, for this, rather than the, swaying it for more malevolent powers. But
well, that's a really interesting thing, is the use of visual language as technology and as a way to persuade the viewer or see something. I don't know, maybe you could talk a little bit about that in terms of the viewer relationship with symbolism, and how do you see that?
Technology-wise, I worry that we're bombarded maybe with. I see it with my daughter. You're bombarded with it so much. I don't know if you'll have time to. I think your synapses probably you would be unaware of it, but you'd still be something there going, well, that there's an open cellar door or whatever, or there was an open door there. That, what does that signify? Well, I think I fear now that you're hit with so many non-stop, or people, I've noticed even walking in to hit the venue tonight, people walk down the street now, looking at their phone without and someone just walks straight into a lamppost. So I kind of worry that the symbols just get so diluted, or there's so many flashing out. They may lose significance now, I don't know, or unless it's some ident or an ad that's just constantly you're getting bombarded or pummeled with. I don't know. It'll be interesting to see what remains, or if they still have the same, I don't know, loaded language, or the same visual power that they may have had for us who live with slow Hitchcock movies and can realize what, you know, a broken heel in the shoe by a stir meant or something, you know, something as lame as that.
So it's really utilizing this the symbolism to signify all of these larger things that are happening as they tie together in a certain way. Is that what you're referring to? Or I'm trying to pick apart this.
It's more. It's more. Visually. I fear, to be honest. I'd like to go at a grander scale, but I fear that I'm just trying to recreate. I think you have an imprint of like the first art you see, and I think I referenced my dad's stack of like pulp fiction books with these kind of covers I was obsessed with, and I fear somewhat I'm just trying to recreate those in various forms. Just, you know, as much as I try to kind of veer away from that, there is part of that imprint that'll just go back to these kind of fascinating images that were fascinating as I found as a kid. That would. So in some ways, you know, I may try to make grand kind of you know, socially relative paintings, but they're not. I fear I'm just trying to recreate those at the end of the day if you study it too long.
Wow, so there's an element of almost like coming back to this place of visual literacy where you've grown up with, so like coming back to like your childhood or something, or like coming back to like who you.
I think stick with you. Do you not think there's an imprint of, you know, you're the stuff that makes a burning impression on you, like, you know, almost like the first time you eat a curry or something, there is something scorched images that really kind of hit you, and you can recall, and you pore over properly, and you study, or you live with, or kind of, you know, I've had others to talk about with like Tretyakov prints, even if you didn't have, you know, I grew up in a kind of shipyard family, there wasn't art really, they had these kind of reproductions of classic pulp books, so that was, you know, if that's all you've got sometimes, and we weren't taken to museums, if that's all you've got, then that burns into you when you're kind of develop your own, so I would be drawing all the time, you're developing your own kind of muscle memory of what, you know, what images fire you, or, you know, or float your boat. That's the, I think.
So there's like an inspiration from the visual imagery that you find like you grew up with, and that you're kind of speaking to this larger storyline that comes about by growing up with certain imagery that's been locked in your own subconscious, perhaps, and your own reflexes to that.
Yes, and as much as you kind of try to break out, you know, invariably I'll find myself just then, you know, using stuff in that alphabet that I kind of seem to have, and I'm not sure if other artists I've talked to about it, they tend to, they'll try to, even if with its color sometimes, if they're, you know, if they work different ways to me, they'll try to break out, and then they find themselves going back to the same color that they're either comfortable with or they feel has this, you know, so I think you do revert quite a bit to not what you know is safe, but what was in your kind of weird arsenal, or what you know is your language possibly, or your kind of alphabet, your back catalogue, or your skill set.
So Aaron, we might need the artist because we have people coming. So is there any other question you want to ask the art dealer, or you want to ask Colin?
I mean, are you leaving too, Virginia? Are you?
Well, no, we have to be here, but
you have to be here. You have to be here. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. I have questions for both of you. So I guess while you're both here, I'm very curious. What have you found? What have you both found that's worked for artists working with an art dealer and coming to like bring a show to life? I think that's very interesting. And what are some ideas that you might have for other artists out there who might want to work in the same way?
Well, I think it always bodes well if you get on with someone. I think that's bottom line. I think that always helps.
It's about having synergy, right?
Yes.
And then when we look at each other, smile. And I think that's the most important.
Yes. Yeah. And things may go wrong, or it might, but you just, you got to trust each other as well. I think that helps. And if they like your work, someone's bonding in your corner, it's kind of helps you through tough days and all. I think
it's a team.
Yeah. That was a lame answer.
So we better go into the real world now. I mean, not
the physical world. You've got to enter the physical world.
So thank you so much, Aaron. Thank you so
much.
Very
nice to talk to you, Aaron.
Nice to see you again.
Good to see you.
And
thanks
see
so much.
You again, yeah.
Have a lovely evening.
Perfect.
Yeah, take care.
Thank you.
Bye.
Take care. You've got to press the X button. You just press the X button there. All right. Perfect. Well, thank you all so much for joining. We've just had a very special episode where we've gone live with Virginia and Colin in the middle of the show in London. So I really appreciate all of you joining, watching whenever now is, and just being here for this very special episode where we've gotten to go live at the beginning of the opening of this beautiful show and break the frame and just start to think about it in, just a little bit of a different way. And how do we use symbolism? I think that's a really interesting thing, is how do, as the artist, as the creator, utilizing the symbolism, utilizing the visual elements, from our past, from our history, that inspire us, that take us forward. And also being able to, to look at these, if just viewing other people's work and seeing what symbols influence them and how that's related. I think it's very interesting to look at how our own symbols from growing up became, what they are today, and what is our visual language. So thank you for exploring with us today as we explored symbols and visual language with Virginia and Colin. Really appreciate it. Thank you to Doing Good HQ, where you, the artist, the creator, can also be the philanthropist. I'm Aaron Jack at Aaron Jack Arts, and I'll see you next week for another beautiful day. Thank you so much.